Hello. The Hobart Bookshop is pleased to be supporting not one, but two Tasmanian authors, Julie Hunt and Terry Whitebeach, on the launch of their new book, Tyenna. Tyenna is a children's fictional work based on the real impacts that bushfires have on our environment and our community. It's part of the Australian Disaster Zone series from publishers Allen and Unwin, and its aim is to tackle current issues and the role our youth have in addressing them. I'm now going to hand over to Daniela Brozek, whose role at the Tas Writers Centre has seen her involved in many a tale, and she has been involved in this project from the very beginning with her photography used on the front cover. Daniela is going to tell us a little bit more about this project. Thank you.
As you say, I love stories, but this is really a children's book. So I'm going to hand this over to someone else who I think deserves priority here. Here's Billy.
Hi, I'm Billy Chatto, and I've just finished reading Tyenna. I think it was a really good book, and it's very relatable, and I just really liked it. I thought some of the characters were really funny, and Myrtle was adorable. Yeah, and I really liked the storyline, and it's interesting how she found Bailey, that he stole her phone and stuff. That's how she met him. And in the end, they became really great friends. But at the start, he was a bit scared. Well, it made me think about when the fires were happening and in Signet when there was smoke everywhere and it was kind of scary that way. Also the pencil pines bit was really interesting, and how she went on and started looking after those, and in the end she planted hers and it grew.
Thanks, Billy. I think Billy's amazing. She's just done a fabulous job of pointing out some special key aspects of Tyenna. That's this lovely new book of Terry Whitebeach's and Julie's that we're here to launch. So welcome again. And what could be more special than Myrtle? Who is Myrtle? I'm sure you're already wondering. But yeah, sorry, you're going to have to read the book to find out. Just let me say that Myrtle is celebrated, and when she's celebrated, Terry and Julie have done the most amazing thing and celebrated all artists. They show us why it's fanciful and sometimes unnecessary as artists are sometimes made out to be. They're in fact so valuable to the world. But in this real world, this more familiar world that we know, there's Bailey, a runaway boy who doesn't want to be found. He's both a mystery and a moral dilemma for the novel's eponymous hero, Tyenna, Ty. He might even be a little bit of a hero himself. And Billy's also told us about her experiences during the 2019 fires, the same fires that at the time they were affecting Billy were also burning on the Central Plateau, the highlands in the middle of Tasmania, and the little settlements around Great Lake, the lake by which the novel is set. Terry and Julie have sensitively fictionalised the place out of respect for the people of those communities, many of who helped Terry and Julie with the research for Tyenna. And all that research really shows, because these authors have done the most amazing job of representing the variety and diversity of that community up in the Central Highlands, and in such a little book. I couldn't believe how much they conveyed. But not only the people, but their ways of living and their resilience in the face of the fire and how they dealt with its traumatic effects both during and after the event. I think thanks, Billy, for mentioning that. And also how, like you, Billy worked to help working helped Ty distract herself so that she didn't worry so much about Bailey and the fires. Billy also talked about Ty's efforts to protect endangered pencil pines. For Ty, it helped her respond to the anxiety of the fire and to climate change. It gave her the most important thing, which is what this amazing book gives us as well, and that's hope. because Tyenna isn't just a story about Tasmania or about a Tasmanian community's response to this terrible fire. It's also about that incredible, immense worry that we all have at the moment, and that's climate change. Climate change is something that disproportionately affects today's children and causes huge anxiety and trauma already, not just concern about possible futures, but also because of the effects that we're already feeling. Thousands of children and families around Australia and the world are being impacted already by climate change. And it's from that the impetus for Alan and Unwin's Through My Eyes Natural Disaster Zone series that Tyenna is part of actually came. Lynn White, the editor and concept originator, created the series to offer inspirational stories of courage, resilience and hope, giving insight into the environment, community and identity through the eyes of one child. It's kind of sad, but indeed really necessary that in fact it's inspiring that this series was born. These are books that teach us how to look after ourselves and our community and our environment. They offer knowledge and strength and hope. At the Youth for Climate Summit in Milan last year, Greta Thunberg said, "Hope is not passive. Hope is not blah, blah, blah. Hope is telling the truth. Hope is taking action. And hope always comes from the people. And we, the people, want a safe future. We want real climate action and we want climate justice." Tyenna's hero, Ty, models these principles. Her story is one of personal and social growth, of learning to navigate relationships and conflict and caring for others. It's also about knowing what to do and having the courage to do what's necessary to survive a natural disaster. It's about affirmative action, holding on to hope and acting in accordance with what you believe in. Tyenna shows us what the writers of our island can offer the world. It's all of us, the world, who must now contend with the effects of what we humans have done to the natural systems and processes of our planet. The writers of Literary to Tasmania have long been at the forefront of this. The world's first Green Party started here to represent the interests of the non-human world within the most human of spheres, politics. We also founded one of the world's first tertiary institutions for environmental education, the University of Tasmania's Centre for Environmental Studies, where back in the 1990s, I did my first degree major and honours. It's hard to say exactly why I ended up there. I don't think I exactly chose the field, but I actually think in a way it's the place itself that nudged me in that direction. This island has a realness that you can't easily look away from. The stories that I was hearing in environmental studies spoke to me because they were about nature and people I recognised, and they deepened my understanding of this place, enriching all of the other stories that were already floating around in my head. Literary to Tasmania's natural history and environmental features, its plants and animals, rocks and landforms, have always seemed to me so integral to our human lives here. When I went to Europe, I found that Tasmanians seem to have different perspectives about the environment compared to what Europeans saw it as. For Europeans, environmental issues were things that might cause problems for humans, like pollution or waste. Tasmanians, on the other hand, saw the environment as having intrinsic worth. I think maybe it's because we live close to relatively intact natural systems, close enough to know them pretty well, and perhaps even to learn, to love the natural world. I'm going to share a few pictures with you here. How could you not love landscapes like these? These are photos of pencil pine communities near Great Lake. If you love someone, set them free, the saying goes. I think many Tasmanians love the environment enough to want it to be free to take a course more or less of its own, but that isn't happening. Nowadays, human activities have countless deleterious effects on the physical and biological properties of our planet and the systems that hold them together. The most wide-reaching and troubling of these are associated with climate change. Here in Tasmania, we can easily see the impacts of climate change. At Port Arthur, there's a sea level benchmark more than 160 years old that shows how sea levels have already risen. On the Central Plateau, where Tyenna is set, ancient Gondwanan ecosystems are struggling due to multiple impacts associated with climate change. Like drought, it may seem hard to believe, but there is one on up there in Tasmania right now. And dry lightning storms. For most of my life, nearly 50 years, such phenomena have been practically unimaginable in Lutruwita. But on the 15th of January, 2019, as it states in this book, there were 2,402 dry lightning strikes across this island. This is one of them. They ignited more than 70 fires, including those that burnt the Central Plateau. They could also be said to have sparked Tyenna. It might be nice to say that Terry and Julie's novel isn't one that we need, but we do need it, and we're lucky to have it. Billy has already said it. We were all scared that summer. We were scared for our homes, our families, our way of life, and our unique environment with its lovely animals and special plants. Our normally bright summer skies were filled with smoke, and the sun turned an ominous dull red. There were water-carrying aircraft. They were an everyday sight. It really was even a bit exciting. I'm refraining from showing you one of my photos here, but Terry and Julie nailed it in the book. There really were people getting amongst the aircraft in kayaks and boats, risking their lives and interfering with the firefighting efforts. But people were deadly serious too. They knew the risks. If we hadn't written our bushfire plans already, we were at least starting to think about what needed to be saved and where we might need to go. As Julie herself has said elsewhere, cars were packed and they were ready to evacuate. But Julie's response was to get out there and do something positive. Here she is, eager to take over the screen, I'm sure. So I think I'll get out of your way now and I'll hand over to Julie and Terry. They have so much to offer. In fact, let's have Terry. Can't we start the book now, Terry?
We can, Daniela. So I'd like to do a few readings from Tyenna. This is Tyenna. But however, so that I'm not peering at you like an owl, I've retyped those pages in 16 point, hopefully to make our enjoyment more full. So right at the very beginning, the book starts on quite a buoyant note, but very quickly this is undercut with some sort of anxiety. Here we go. This is going to be her best holiday yet, Tyenna thinks, as she and Nan head out of the Launceston airport towards the Central Highlands. It's summer. Ty's turning 13. She's back in Tasmania and her lovely Pop is waiting to see her. He's promised her a big walk this year, a 3-day trek to the walls of Jerusalem, and her best friend Lily's bursting with plans for their time together. Plenty of things to look forward to. Nan and Pop are always glad to have her stay. So what's causing the worry wrinkle between Nan's eyebrows? Well, of course, it's the threat of bushfires. Both her grandparents are involved in preparing for fires. Pop as a firefighter of many generations, and Nan helping to coordinate things at the hall in Merrick. So now we move to the Merrick Hall, where the radio blares constantly and people shout over the sound. There's also the noise of aircraft, helicopters returning to refuel, small float planes scooping water up from the lake. Ty notices that fire updates seem to be getting more frequent, every 20 minutes or so. The guy in charge strides out of the office, phone at his ear. He paces the length of the hall, listening intently. Then he's gone again. We meet Lance in this scene. He's an old fisherman who lives with Nan and Pop at Chancey's Lodge. Lance sits on the back veranda out of the wind, catching up with an old fishing mate he hasn't seen in years. A situation like this brings everyone out of the woodwork. Now, as fire threatens Merrick, Ty is evacuated to her Pop's family farm near Bothwell, and Lily is sent off to relatives in Ouse. As soon Auntie Jill leaves the kitchen, Ty's back at the computer, checking the warnings and scanning the latest updates. There are fires burning on a number of fronts, but the one near Merrick is the scariest. It's almost at the town. She swallows a lump in her throat and tries to tell herself not to worry. People in the bush are used to fires. The fireys have decades of experience and help has come from all over. The helicopters and planes can dump tons of water in one go. If only the wind would die down or change direction. Ty's other worry, of course, is Bailey. Nobody but she and Lily know that he's out there in the bush somewhere. Is he okay, she wonders, and should she have told Nan and Pop about him? Well, Merrick is saved and Ty returns home. Then the fire makes a sudden run towards Chancey's and they have to evacuate immediately. But Lance has disappeared. He's taken one of the kayaks and gone fishing. He's unaware of the emergency. As Ty races across the neck to head him off, Bailey suddenly appears, running towards the lake as well. The old man appears to be drifting right into the path of the air tractors. He's doubled over, coughing and gasping for breath. He's on the open water beyond the headland where the wind is strongest. They swim out. Ty grasps the floating painter and turns the canoe around. And slowly, bit by bit, they manage to bring their cargo back to shore. When they help Lance out, his legs give way. They lower him to the ground and flop on their bellies for a moment, panting hard. But there's little time to linger. The sky's a dangerous mixture of orange and turbulent grey, and the wind is rising. No time to ask Bailey where he's been or what he's doing back here. This way, he yells. Over the wind and the roar of planes and the even more sinister sound like a train approaching and gathering speed. It's the fire. It bellows closer and closer till it seems that it'll surely engulf them. Choking and sobbing, Ty and Bailey help Lance along. Can they make it back to Chancey's? Well, no, of course they can't, but you'll have to read the book to find out what happens next.
Well, they do make it back to Chancey's and they recover from the fire. But over 200,000 hectares of bush were burnt out during those fires, and a lot of it was in World Heritage area. And when we started working on this book, we talked to a lot of people, scientists, farmers and firefighters and local people. And anyway, we heard of a pencil pine regeneration program that was happening up on the plateau. And Terry and I have always had a thing for pencil pines. And it was a lot of pines were actually lost in that fire, not a huge amount, but a lot, and they're quite precious. So I went to volunteer at this site where they were replanting pines, and I learned quite a bit about the pines, that they're one of the oldest species in the world, 130 million years old, these pines, and they grow old themselves, up to 200, well, up to over 1,000 years old. And they're very, very slow growing, the pines. They grow a metre every 50 years, if that. So, and the thing about them is that they are absolutely very fire sensitive. Unlike eucalypts, they don't regenerate. So once they're burnt, they're burnt. Here's a site of some replanting. These are dead stags from a previous fire. You can see the little tree guards down in the foreground there. So Ben French, his name was, the scientist, he was planting amongst the dead trees and the living trees, and the little squares there you can see are for the drones to pick up when he's doing the mapping. And what I learnt up there was that even the undamaged trees aren't regenerating as they used to, partly due to climate, but also because of they're eaten so quickly by wombats and wallabies and things. And this is sort of partly due to the changing land use over the years. Like there was, you know, hunting and trapping, and there was stock grazing up there, and now that's not happening. And also the loss of the top predator, the thylacine. So that was all sort of really interesting info when you're researching a book. Here's Ben looking at a little seedling. And I read somewhere recently, he called the pencil pines charismatic. And they are charismatic. They're so ancient, they're so old. And they were around when dinosaurs walked the earth. And they've survived multiple ice ages, but they may not survive this century, may not survive the next 50 years. So we used the pencil pine as a symbol of hope in a story and gave our character Tyenna a real love and concern for this particular tree. And it's like when she's amongst a grove of ancient pencil pine trees, she gets this feeling that everything is right with her in the world and everything is right with the world, a timeless sort of feeling, even though she knows very well that she's growing up in a time when more plant and animal species are becoming extinct every week. She works to save the pencil pines, to work with them, and she also works quite a lot in during the fire effort and in the aftermath. So it's sort of harking back to what how Daniela was quoting Greta, that it's hope is not passive, it's active, you know. So what we're doing with the book is trying to give kids a sense of agency, that what they do matters and they can certainly help a lot. So I'll read you a little bit from towards the end of the book. It's taking time, but the bush is starting to recover and the creatures are coming back. Ty remembers the silence straight after the fires and how long it took to hear the birds again, except for the crows. They returned almost immediately, feasting on carrion. It was ages before she heard a frog croak. Time's a funny thing, it seems to Ty. It feels like aeons ago that the crews were battling the fires and then mopping up afterwards. But in another way, it feels as if the fires ended yesterday. Change is rushing forward at a dramatic rate. The great acceleration, Lucas reminds Ty in a text to a friend. We're in the Pyrocene now. The Earth hurtling into a new geological epoch. So much change in just a few decades, time speeding up. It certainly speeded up for Ty and whirled her into a brand new life, where working for the environment has become her first priority. It's only a year since Greta first protested outside the Swedish Parliament, and now teenagers the world over are organising climate strikes, school strikes. Hope lies only in action. That's a Swedish girl's message. Ty agrees. So we leave Ty working for the future and working for change, and we sort of finish near the end, which she has a little pencil pine like this, and she plants it up behind the town we call Merrick, up in the Highland country up there, hoping that it won't only survive, but it will thrive. A lot of people helped us with this, putting together this book by sharing their experiences. I'd like to thank a few of them, the kids from Bothwell District High School, Bothwell Fire Crew, who invited us to a training night, and Doug Lang from the Great Lake Crew, members of the TFS. A lot of people from the TFS helped us, but among them Peter Middleton, Dave Cleaver, Steve Richardson, thank you very much, Alison Wiggins. I'd like to thank Ben French for the work he's doing with the pencil pines in view of climate change, and Jason Smith, who shared his knowledge on Indigenous burning, cultural burning, very different sort of fire management. Thanks also to Lynn White, the series creator, and to Hilary Reynolds and the team at Allen and Unwin. And thanks very much to you, Daniela, for the beautiful words you've written about the book, and for your picture for the cover of Daniela's beautiful photo of the pencil pine.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Julie. Terry, would you like to have a few words too?
Thanks, Daniela. I'd also like to add my thanks to Lynn White, who midwifed this series, often under difficult circumstances, but with great grace and skill, and to thank the whole Allen and Unwin team. We're grateful to Bronwyn and Hobart Bookshop too for taking on the launch. Bronwyn is ably following the generations of support to Tasmanian writers offered by the Pierce family. We miss Chris and Janet, but we think that Bronwyn is a very worthy successor, so thank you. And thank you too, Daniela, for your creative efforts on our behalf, and again for your generous words. We're really grateful to writing colleagues Gai McKinnon, Leanne Tanner and Liz Winfield, who read earlier versions of the manuscript and gave us some good feedback. We think that the novel is probably stronger for your input. Ron Moss, poet and firefighter, was one of our earliest informants, and he gave us an exhaustive rundown on TFS procedures and protocols. So we thank him for that generosity and for his wonderful haiku collection, Bushfire Moon. Julie, I'd like to thank you for our joint adventure, researching and writing Tyenna. It was a wild ride at times, especially after COVID entered the picture. And sometimes we were pushed right out of our comfort zones, but there was plenty of joy and lots of time to play. I think we grew as writers and learned each other's strengths and shortcomings, likes and dislikes. Terry, I don't give a toss what colour her eyes are. Julie, get rid of the adverbs. I hate adverbs. Judith Rodriguez once told me that she thought creativity oozed out of Julie's every pore, and I would certainly agree. And I'm grateful to have shared the Tyenna journey with her. We're also grateful to our readers. It's you that we wrote the book for, and we hope you enjoy reading it as much as we enjoyed writing it. Lastly, I'd like to offer my thanks to the first inhabitants of this island, under whose care the land flourished for millennia. There is so much we can learn from them about how to care for country. Thanks, Daniela.
Thank you, Terry and Julie. And thanks for your thank yous. It's been such a pleasure to help you and be part of this journey with you as well. Well done. Tyenna's marvellous. But there's someone better to say that. So here she is.
I hope everybody enjoys the book as much as I did, and I really recommend it to people that have been through this.
Isn't she gorgeous?
Yeah. Thanks so much, Billy. What a great girl. I struggle sometimes not to call Billy Tyenna. But there we have it. Tyenna's serious stuff. It's about climate change, the deadly force of wildfires, and confronting things head on, something we might all be having to do more and more of. But this is about Ty experiencing all those things, and through them growing into her community and her sense of herself, growing up. But it's also about these lovely characters, and it's an amazing adventure story. It's such fun to read. Above all, it's a great read. Just get it, read it. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. She's in the world. She's launched. You can find Tyenna in the bookshops, virtual and real, but we like real ones. We might be a bit virtual here, but Hobart Bookshop exists. So thanks, Bronwyn, for hosting us. I believe Terry and Julie have been signing some copies that can be got there. So pop into the Hobart Bookshop and don't miss out. And thank you everyone for listening. Thank you.